All right. What I'm going to do is, are they on a lot of different subjects, or are they same subject? How are they grouped?
I have 3 subjects.
Okay. Given the large number of people who want to speak, and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to say what they want to say, we're going to limit each speaker to 2 minutes. At 2 minutes, you'll hear this. At 2:15, you'll hear it louder. And at 2:30, your mic goes off. So that makes sure that everybody is treated fairly. So with that, Madam Clerk, let's go.
All right. First, we have Jessica Catula, who will be followed up by Lauren Cabarrus. I ask as I read your name as follow-up if you'll make your way towards the front so you'll be ready to speak when you're called to the podium.
And whoever's next, please come down to these seats up front. Name and address, if you would, please. Name, address, city. You can leave off the zip code if you want to.
Jessica Catula, 510 Carrollwood Lane, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30342. My name is Jessica, and my daughter Madeline is here with me, age 7. I've lived in Atlanta for over 20 years and within Sandy Springs since 2014. I own a home in the neighborhood of Meadowbrook. I love it here, the sense of community, the activities, the friendships, the new development, and the many offerings here, from the neighborhood library to the restaurants to the City Springs events like fireworks, musicals, and tree lighting. We enjoy taking part in all of it. I not only live here, but I work here as well. I am a patent attorney with Newell Brands, formerly Newell Rubbermaid, where I've worked for almost 10 years. As a parent, and as all parents can appreciate, I do my best to honor my child's personality, passions, and talents. We have tried many activities over the years, soccer, ballet, even other gymnastics programs. However, none were quite right until we found Phoenix Gymnastics. When we started here, my daughter just clicked with everyone. She can be herself, and she is thriving, learning a ton and building confidence. Phoenix offers a phenomenal program, one that builds confidence, work ethic, and friendships. They offer classes and other activities like Friday night open gym and parents' night out in a convenient setting right down the street from our home. We've made friends, and it feels like home. Since she has started here, she's blossomed as a gymnast and as a more confident and happy little girl. She is so proud of her accomplishments, and so am I. She is looking forward to trying out for the pre-team group so she can advance even further. If you take away Phoenix, we will have to find a new gym outside of the community. First, there is no telling whether she will like a new environment. Second, it will likely be a 30 to 40-minute commute that would cut into her school day and my work day. We expect more from Sandy Springs. As I said earlier, this community offers so much and continues to invest in itself. Why would it abandon this gymnastics program, one that brings so many benefits to our little girls and boys? At a time when so much investment is going into the city in terms of buildings and the like, why would we not support a proven program?
All right, thank you. Next.
Next, Lauren Cabarrus.
No, audience. No, it is against the rules, and if you do, we'll have to ask that you be escorted out. We ask for that level of decorum. I understand your enthusiasm and your passion, but clap between your ears. Next.
Lauren Cabarrus, who's followed by Christina Thompson.
Ms. Thompson, please make your way forward.
Okay. Hi. I'm Christina Thompson.
You're Ms. Thompson.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Christina Thompson. I live at 7156 Stonington Drive. I've lived here for 8 years in Sandy Springs. I forgot what else you wanted me to say.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have several community members here today because we recently found out about the Roswell Access Management Plan. And although we do support efforts to make Roswell safer, it can be kind of scary sometimes we're driving on Roswell Road. If you look at Plan 3 of 6, you'll see that every community has a break in the median to let you turn into the community, except Stonington condominiums. In front of our community, the median is completely solid. And so if you're coming north on Roswell Road, which I think is usually where people are coming from because the city's south, you would have to drive an extra 0.7 miles to Dalrymple, wait for the light, make a U-turn, drive 0.7 miles back down, and turn into the community. There might be a median break somewhere, but usually median breaks have a no U-turn sign, and anyway, it's dangerous to make U-turns. And then if you want to come out of Stonington to go north, you have to either make a U-turn at Spalding Drive, or if you miss that, you have to go 1.3 miles south to Abernathy and Roswell, make a U-turn there, and then head north. So I wanted to just say a few points. Our community has 123 units. That's hundreds of residents. That's hundreds of cars making those U-turns every single day. This would really severely impact our home value. No one wants to live in a community you can't turn into. And it would also make it more difficult for emergency services to reach our community because of that median. So again, we do appreciate efforts to make Roswell more safe. We just do want to pay attention, or ask you to pay attention to the economic impact and just the burden on our daily lives that this would cause. And we hope that this plan
Thank you
would
very
be
much.
scrapped.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll get together with staff and look at that. Next.
What was the name of that? Dunnington?
Stonington.
Oh.
Stonington, just north of Abernathy. Next.
Next, we have Shantae Dingle, who's followed by Autumn Smith.
If Ms. Smith will come down and sit. It'll be helpful if everybody gets down here closer to the mic when you're called.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Shantae Dingle. I spoke here just 3 weeks ago from today to share my story about my daughter's gymnastics organization. We did our part, but I just have to say that there is a misalignment here because the economic development supports underserved communities, but Parks and Recreation are terminating underserved businesses. There lies the problem. We have recs and development, and we have had subcommittees on our diversity and inclusion task force. I just want to acknowledge that the operation of the city is staff-based, but we are appealing here right now to all of you as political leaders. You listen to me, and I listen to you. And because of our Mayor, Rusty Paul's words on record, and I quote, strongly consider reinstating the agreement once she is in compliance. Well, she, Gina White, the owner of Phoenix Gymnastics, raised the money and more thanks to our amazing and engaged community. Mayor Rusty Paul, as a chief of problem solving in the elected Springs City Council, the community is calling for people who we elected to please stand up and do something. We would like for you to enjoy the rest of your Black History Month, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Next.
Autumn Smith, who's followed by Kyla Langdon.
Hi, my name is Autumn. I'm the office manager and team coach at Phoenix Gymnastics, located in Hammond Park.
Could you give us your address, please?
2280 Dunwoody Crossing, Dunwoody, Georgia, 30338.
Okay, thank you.
I am also here to address a very urgent situation in our community. I've worked at Phoenix Gymnastics since the very beginning in 2019. I could stand here today and tell you about all the sleepless nights our team has had applying for youth sports grants, sponsorship requests, writing lesson plans, and evaluating how to pivot this business in order to survive during a pandemic. But that wouldn't matter. Sandy Springs claims to prioritize affordable, diverse, and inclusive recreational programming to the community. It's funny. Phoenix offers recreational classes at a roughly 30% lower rate than surrounding gyms. Phoenix has applied multiple times to the city of Sandy Springs for a grant to start a neurodiverse gymnastics program. Phoenix has hosted annual events to allow businesses like Goldfish Swim School, Young Chefs Academy, and Cup of Kick to spread community awareness. As a coach, I've talked kids down from panic attacks and helped them face their fears. The same girls and boys that are our future. Doctors, lawyers, city council members, teachers, and coaches. No one succeeds alone. This battle is not Phoenix against Sandy Springs. It's about coming together as partners to protect what matters most, the kids. So I've told you what Phoenix has done, but what have you done to help Phoenix? I can stand here and try to prove you all wrong, but that would fail to reveal the truth. Sandy Springs doesn't care about affordability, diversity, or inclusion. I'll let you show what the city believes instead. So I ask you, Mayor Paul, City Council members John, Melody, Melissa, Jody, Tibby, and Andy, what are you going to do to serve your community, the people here in front of you, and most importantly, the children at Phoenix Gymnastics? Thank you.
Next.
Kayla Langdon, who's followed by Leslie Mullis.
Hi, my name is Kyla Langdon. I'm a Fulton County resident.
Could you give us your street address, please?
841 Memorial Drive, Southeast. My name is Kyla Langdon. I'm a second-year medical student. During my time I was hired on Phoenix Gymnastics in 2019, right after the business opened. We've weathered quite a few things together, and I've been able to earn 2 advanced degrees during my time here. The program has recently started programming with a local high school to be able to bring high school students in. Part of what I've been able to accomplish at Phoenix is work experience, which we're now bringing coaches in to learn skills that they can take into the workforce, that they can take with them in college. Some of those coaches are here with us today who attend high schools here in the Sandy Springs area. So talking about pouring into the future, not just the little ones that we serve, but like even high school students that are getting ready to enter the workforce. When I started with some kids who were like 12 months of age. They were really young and their parents were really nervous and they didn't know. And some of those same kids now are old enough that they are matriculating through the program and they're looking forward to auditioning for a team and being on pre-team. And now we're talking about taking that opportunity away from them. This program is about much more than just a gym. We've created community, a place where children of all ages run into the building full of laughter and happiness as they get ready for gymnastics, ready to show off skills that they've practiced and earn stamps, which are not really about the stamps, but more important life things like learning how to show up for themselves, how to work hard, see progress, and most of all, how to grow. I challenge you today to think about your own families and children if you have them, or if not, think back to yourself about the opportunities that were afforded to you as a child to have those experiences to grow. This opportunity is talking about taking more away from children that just weathered a pandemic, over 300 children who you serve. The work we do is important, and at various levels, we provide a viable and important piece of this community to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mullis, who's next?
Michael Riddick is after Ms. Mullis.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leslie Mullis, 235 Brandon Place, Sandy Springs, 30328. I'm here to speak on behalf of Phoenix Gymnastics. This minority-owned small business serves a diverse and inclusive community of Sandy Springs residents. The program teaches not only gymnastic skills, but also team, leadership, and life skills. Ms. White communicated frequently, professionally, and openly with the Parks and Rec Department about the issues she faced from the pandemic, from inflation, staffing, but most frequently about the need for maintenance of the Hammond Gym facility. In the January 17th City Council meeting, Mayor Paul rightfully mentioned the need to deliver on contractual agreements between Ms. White and the city. And as I gathered facts about that relationship, there may have been failures by both parties. The contract stated that the performance was based upon the expectation that the city furnished property suitable for contract performance, and that the city furnished property would be in a condition suitable for its intended use. Did the city follow through on its responsibilities to provide a suitable facility? As part of the agreement, Ms. White held monthly meetings with the city to discuss status and issues where she repeatedly expressed concerns with the state of the Hammond Park Gym. And I've looked at the city's week in review reports, and I was unable to find any mention of the Hammond Park Gym issues. Ms. White has demonstrated that she and Phoenix Gymnastics have the support of the community. She's raised enough money to cover the rent where she was in arrears.
Finish
And
your
I
sentence.
asked the mayor and council to reconsider termination of the agreement with Phoenix Gymnastics.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Riddick, who's followed by Gina White.
All right, Mr. Riddick?
Hello, Michael Riddick, 1597 Edgewood Church, Atlanta, Georgia, 30314. Today, I come as an owner, small business owner of a trucking company, Premier Ray Transport, and I speak on behalf of Gina White and Phoenix Gymnastics, being a partner of Sandy Springs community. Over the time, Gina has proved to have the will, expertise, creativity, and the force of change that I've seen myself bloom from a one-person show into a flourishing program for others to enjoy in the community. Over the time, I've seen kids learn Olympic level skills, hundreds of families network, and potential lifetime relationships develop organically. In spite of a pandemic where she did not lay off any employees and did not let anyone go, she only was followed up by high inflation. I'm concerned with the city's action to terminate the contract and insist that the city reviews its plans to work with Gina. She has the passion, the love, and the support to help the kids in this community. And at rare times, she did face difficulties. But she did not put profits before people, and she addressed the problems that she needed to in a timely manner. I ask that you see how to become a partner with Gina instead of being a landlord, and I thank you for your time and consideration in this manner.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick. Ms. White. And who's following?
Renee Holtning.
Okay.
Good evening. I am Gina White, and I am a Fulton County resident. And
Could you give us your street address, please?
1597 Ezra Church Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, 30314.
All right, thank you.
So I was awarded a contract with the city of Sandy Springs in 2019 to take over a fledgling gymnastics program and an also fledgling facility. I knew that I had a challenge ahead of me, but it was a challenge that I was willing to accept. So I went for it all 110%. And then during that time period, and that's 6 months before the pandemic, I was also left without restrooms inside. So a community who was used to a city program, I was new, there were no restrooms, it was the middle of winter. But with the 100 kids that I started with that summer, before we shut down in March of 2022, we had 300 kids in our facility. During the 4 months of shutdown, as you heard previously, I did not let go of any of my employees. For 24 weeks straight, I logged onto the Georgia State website to make sure that all of my employees were paid during the time that we were shut down. We tried to pivot with virtual programming, and that did not work for us. We were finally back in July of 2021, but despite us with our struggles with the limited amount of students that we could allow into the building with restrictions, we also had issues with the buildings. I reached out numerous times to the city to try to get things rectified in an efficient manner, and I was usually left alone to try to do these things myself. So I would spend extra time throughout the week, 6 days a week, to ensure that that facility was clean and ready to go for the students that we saw every day. I also made sure that I made connections with area high schools so that I could train junior coaches to fill our employee gap, but also give them hands-on experience into a small business work environment. And those are teenagers in your community. On the opening page of Sandy Springs, the history of how you guys were all started, you guys have a quote that says, and your quote says that...
Ms. White, thank you. Ms. Holting?
Who's followed by Jason Hamilton.
Mr. Hamilton, if you'd come forward.
My name is Renee Holting. I live at 88 Long Island Place. I've worked, volunteered, and been a resident of Sandy Springs for more than 44 years. As most everyone is aware, many of our residents woke up Sunday morning to find disturbing anti-Semitic flyers in our driveway. Many cities have seen violence, acts to avert racism and vitriol directed at their marginalized and disaffected minority citizens. It appeared that Sandy Springs may have escaped many such visible acts of bigotry and intolerance. It was heartening to see the overflowing crowds in our city center when residents gathered to express outrage and support and unity with communities of color after the death of George Floyd. We applauded the responsive action of the mayor and the city council in establishing a diversity and inclusion task force. The task force would give us guidance and understanding and help us find ways to make sure everyone in our community felt heard and included. On Sunday morning, when the flyers began appearing, the first calls of concern and outrage for my family came from many of the residents here tonight who are trying to preserve the Phoenix Gym. Their calls are heartfelt because they too know the sickening feeling of being a target of hate. If our city has resources to build trails that cost millions and many more millions to maintain, a veterans park that costs millions and has accessibility challenges, surely we can find the resources to preserve the Phoenix Gym. Helping preserve the Phoenix Gym in our city, a source of comfort to our young women of color who have found a space where they have role models and see others like themselves, would help our city.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan.
Please.
Jason Hamilton, who's
Hamilton.
followed by Bree Ellis.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council members. My name is Jason Hamilton. Address is 235 Winding River Drive. Unit A is in Alpha. My wife, thank you for allowing me to come before you this evening to share my thoughts and concerns about our city. My wife and I have been residents of Sandy Springs for over 10 years. I would like to ask you to consider developing a community center that offers an inside public pool, fitness center, after-school program, and activity rooms that would have school programs, programs, but meetings and extracurricular activities for our residents. The city has a population of 110 and it is still growing. I would love for the city to continue investing more into our parks and recreations. This will allow us to have more options and activities than what we currently have. Building a community center will also match the real estate investment that is attracting more people to live in our city. I know and understand this will be very costly, so I would like for you to offer residents a discount membership, and non-residents can be charged a daily entry fee, a weekly, to a monthly membership as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bree Ellis, who is followed by David Jeffer.
Ms. Ellis.
Hi, my name is Bree Ellis. I am a resident of Sandy Springs, and I live at 8080 River Circle, Sandy Springs. As much as my coworkers and I joke about the high stress and need for patients to perform this job, we have grown to love our job and the structure of the program. Throughout my time, I have watched the staff involved in running this program truly pour their hearts and everything into this program and have done the most to stay open throughout COVID-19 as a minority-owned business. Their strength and dedication is beyond admirable. Over my 3+ years, I've seen students smile while entering this building and leave with a bigger one. And this spreads throughout the Phoenix community. Before practice starts, we consistently have to ask girls to wait a little bit longer before they can start flipping, and when it's time to leave, they just don't want to. My preteen girls, ages 7 and 8, have even grown to get excited for conditioning. The environment within Phoenix training is not only uplifting and encouraging, but we are also learning and teaching discipline and what it means and how it pays off, along with many other things. The Phoenix community has brought people together, kids, coaches, parents, families. I've seen it and experienced it. Gymnasts come to Hammond because they love gymnastics, but they stay because they love Phoenix. Earlier I mentioned that students come in smiling and leave with a bigger one, and that includes me. Training and working at Phoenix has brought so much value to my life in helping me mature and teaching me to be a leader through attitude, responsibility, and accountability. Prior to Phoenix, I had no job experience whatsoever. When the current junior coaches were offered a job, Gina came to us and offered us a job while demanding that we came prepared for an interview with a resume. She told us that she trusted our experiences, but informed us that she wanted us to go through the interview process as it would be beneficial to understand what it would be like in the future, and wanted us to practice how to assemble a proficient resume. As scared as I was then, Gina was right, and it paid off. The practice was extraordinarily beneficial when I applied for a junior counselor job at the YMCA sleepaway camp. The interview gave me experience and confidence for the YMCA role.
Ms. Ellis, thank you.
David Joffer, who's followed by Soheb Roy.
Good evening. I'm David Jaffer, 3538 Habersham Road at North Lake, Tucker, Georgia. I represent several gas station owners on Sandy Spring roads, and we're here because of something that was said at the council retreat, and we wanted to give you a better perspective. Many people, when they see Chevron, Shell, BP, they automatically assume that the land that they occupy in the business is owned by multinational corporation. That is not the case. These are small businesses that operate within your city. On the other hand, brands like QT and Racetrack are truly a national chain. While the city is growing and continues to grow, that doesn't mean that we need additional fuel stations. The data since 2012 shows that the consumption of fuel has been on the decline. That's because we see more efficient cars and EVs come on the scene. Given the Sandy Spring residents have voiced their opinion of not adding any more gas station, and given the fact that we expect to see a decline to continue in the future, we should not consider adding any more high-volume fuel station. Doing so would simply cause congestion and increase traffic. Finally, the folks who are here today they operate in Sandy Spring and elsewhere, Roswell Road and elsewhere, are concerned that there's a narrative that the older gas stations don't reflect the market demand, and perhaps this body should consider adding new gas station when they start to redo their existing development code. The folks that are here today have been active. We've been working with the city. Most of them are in compliance with the code that's here. I think what's missing is the flow of information. So we expect to do a better job in communicating with the city planning and zoning, so that you have the data that you need to make the decision that affects their livelihood and other folks in Sandy Springs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Soheb Roy, who's followed by Mustav Kamruddin. Excuse me.
Hi, my name is Soheb Roy, and I live at 7950 Laurel Crest in Johns Creek, Georgia. My family and I are the owners of the Shell gas station located on 5866 Roswell Road since 2016. I just had to address the statement that were made last week's retreat that small mom and pops gas stations need to up their game, and I just wanted to voice what I need to say. My family and I have made the choice to upgrade our gas station in 2019 with the pumps and the property along with the landscape. With the pandemic hitting, we had a standstill around that time, and we just wanted to let everyone know that we are continuing the upgrades and we're in the process of upping our game, in other words. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Next, and who's after?
Next is Nicole Matahari.
Good evening, Mayor and the Council. My name is Mushtaq Kamruddin. I reside at 6215 Clifton Circle, Suwanee, Georgia. But my partner and I own and operate the BP gas station located at 6360 Roswell Road in Sandy Springs. We are small business operators and also our family owned. Between us and the previous owner, we have operated the stations for the last 20 years. It has been a privilege and pleasure owning a business in the city. We have a large percentage of residents who visit our location frequently and have become loyal customers. I would like to echo all the sentiments and comments which were made by the previous owners and David, and add one comment about the Sandy Springs Public Services, especially the police department. They are always very helpful and supportive in keeping our business safe and secure by responding promptly whenever needed. We would like to continue doing business in the city and keep these relationships with the city and serving our customers. Thank you for letting me speak in front of you today, and I hope you have a nice evening.
Thank you. Next.
Nicole Matahari, followed by Solomon Sudrani.
Good evening, Nicole Matahari, 7130 Stonington Drive. I've been a resident of Sandy Springs all my life, 29 years. I've been a page in front of Mr. Tivi DiGiulio when I was 13 years old, and I'm back again. So I am speaking on the topic of the Stonington median, and we've been told it is a low priority. However, low priority does not mean no priority. We do not want to have this conversation 5, 10, 15 years when maybe I'm sitting up there. I'm a teacher at North Springs High School, and I walk home from work, so this affects me as a pedestrian as well. So we are vehemently opposed to the concrete median, particularly the section between Spalding and Dalrymple. It would prevent safe and effective ingress and egress of our property. Not only will this impact residents, it also impacts emergency workers, and it would affect our property values dramatically. Although we understand it is not on the high priority, we want to have these plans amended. So, for instance, a crosswalk such as what they propose, or a
traffic light with a protected left-hand turn for residents coming out of the community would be a much safer option. For instance, medians can cause crashes, and those are clearly centered around intersections. And while we value safety, we think it would pose more of a safety concern with the difficulty of navigating Roswell Road. It would force people to make U-turns, illegal vehicle maneuvering, in order to successfully enter or exit many places. But our community specifically, it takes 2 seconds to make a left-hand turn. Making a U-turn takes 6 seconds and is more dangerous for oncoming traffic as well as the driver themselves. And somehow I have a feeling my students would be very sad if I got turned into a pancake walking home from work. And we have a few questions, which is how many fatal accidents involve pedestrians and bikes, who was included in those community surveys, because we were not, out of 110,000 residents, how many responses, who is managing this project for its entire lifespan. Thank you guys so much. And I have a letter from another pissed off homeowner, but I'm not going to read that for y'all. Thank you.
You can give that to the clerk. And the last thing we want is for you to pancake anything, so. All right, next.
Solomon Sudrani, followed by Rahim Sudrani.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Solomon Sundrani. Address is 5995 Roswell Road. I'm a resident of Sandy Springs and also a small business owner since before the city of Sandy Springs was incorporated and changed over from the city of Atlanta. I'm 39 years old now, but I have been brought up and have worked on Roswell Road since 2000. My first job was Blimpie, located on Wayuka and Roswell Road. And then after, I worked for old Pure Brand Station, currently Chevron Brand, located at 295 Mount Vernon Highway across from City Hall. And I got an opportunity to buy in year 2009. And after, I got another opportunity to purchase the BP gas station located on Roswell Road and Heyman Drive last year. I operate both the stores as individual owner-operator. Being a successful operator in the city and following the city guidance, both the site, Chevron and BP, with new look and the tap credit card fast operating pumps, I have made the site a game changer, where we don't see any big lines holding traffic or Sandy Springs residents waiting for gas. As we are challenging gas industry by electric cars and market with the state support of great tax rebate and incentive. Even with new apartment built in city, I have been noticing the usage of petroleum is dropped 20% by new electric and hybrid technology of cars. What is really coming fast in market, now built by every manufacturer other than Tesla. As per Georgia Power rule and help in similar interest of customers either buy gas or charge the cars, I am personally looking forward to have 2 EV charging stations so even customers with family can park their cars in well-lighted and landscaped property and walk and give more business either to myself or to other small businesses located in City Walk. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Rahim Sudrani, followed by Mike Powell.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rahim Sundrani. I'm a local resident of Sandy Spring and also a business owner of a Texaco gas station. Address is 5645 Roswell Road, Sandy Spring, right across from Toronto. My dad, Salim Sundrani, worked here as a cashier manager from 2001 to early 2004 and have been owner-operator since 2004 till now. My family has been residing in Sandy Springs since 2005. We have been a part of this community even before the city of Sandy Springs was formed in 2005. Our goal is to serve the community and provide the best customer service possible. Currently, few of our employees are also local Sandy Springs residents. This site was closed down. A closed corporate store named Swifty Serve, and we converted this site to a Citgo brand back then. We faced many challenges initially, but eventually we survived since it was a family-owned and operated. Based on the community and customer service requirement, we have kept the store open 24 hours since 2002. During pandemic, we were one of the few gas stations in Sandy Springs who were open 24 hours just to serve the community since we were considered essential business owner. It was a big struggle to find employees during that time, but me and my dad worked late night in order to keep up with it. We constantly try to improve, adopt new ideas, technologies to grow and up our game. As city grew residential commercially, we got opportunity to purchase another gas station in 2010 located at 8779 Dunwoody Place, Sandy Springs, Georgia. We recently renovated Roswell Road location and spent over $150,000 to upgrade the store from inside and outside. We changed our gas brand to Texaco, installed new fuel dispensers with the latest innovation. We continue to improve our store image inside and outside as needed. We had opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Powell, followed by Kate Tochi.
Mayor Paul, council members, thank you for your service and for this limited amount of time. I'm a longtime Sandy Springs resident and a business owner here in Sandy Springs. 361 Thornwood Drive is home. 10 Glen Lake Parkway is business. I am an intellectual property lawyer and a registered mediator with over 30 years experience. I specialize in businesses that focus on intellectual property disputes, patents, trademarks, copyrights. Most of my work is federal litigation. I'm not here as an attorney or a mediator. I'm here as a dad. Way up there, this one waving at me, she's a North Springs student. I was a North Springs student many years ago. And what I want to say is that she asked me to speak, Lindsay Powell, and the positive impact that Phoenix Gymnastics has had on us. It's about 4 generations worth. I look forward to 2 to 3 times a week. Lindsay comes home and tells me stories of kids who are overcoming fears, kids that have suffered through the pandemic, kids that are set back. Have you tried to get a speech therapist lately? You can't find them. They're booked out for years because kids are set back, because they're in lockdown, kids in masks. They're not, they have a lot of non-gymnastics issues going on. Lindsay is able to go and focus with them. Lindsay wants to be a play therapist one day, help these kids more. Social anxieties. Imagine a kid, and I equate this, I'm not a gymnast, I equate this to riding a bike or learning to ride a bike. How you learn to do that, you overcome your fears. Helping these kids is tremendous. Lastly, I've got 14 seconds. I want to thank Ms. Gina White. I'm incredibly impressed. To start a business before the pandemic, to maintain the business, the strength, the courage, the determination. I'm proud that my daughter is learning from Gina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Kate Tochi, followed by Porka Topka.
Hi, my name is Kate Tachi. I live at 4789, and I'm going to be speaking about my experience at Phoenix Gymnastics. I was a gymnast for 7, almost 8 years, 5 of which were at Hammond Gym, now Phoenix. Gymnastics is not only a sport about strength, but a sport about community, and I think Phoenix Gymnastics embodies that, whether it be in their recreational classes or in their competitive team, both of which I've experienced. I'd left my previous gym because I hadn't had good experiences with girls or the coaches. But then I went to Phoenix. I could consider this to be one of the best decisions of my life. The coaches and girls made me feel so welcomed, even though I felt out of place as the oldest girl on the competitive team. But Gina especially made me feel at home. She would always greet me with a warm smile and push me to be a better athlete and as a person. She kept the passion of the sport alive in my heart, even years after I decided to stop competing. Gina is hardworking, she loves what she does, and most importantly, she loves the girls she coaches. Phoenix should pride themselves on how they make a community. No, a family. From team sleepovers to fun games and competitions to keep us occupied, they never failed to make everyone closer. Not just the relationships with our teammates, but also with our coaches. Without them, I probably would have never performed my flyaway, let alone get over my mental block. They made sure that they were there to support us in whatever way we would need. The inspiring phrases made me feel like a phoenix rising from the ashes. All in all, Phoenix has been a vital part of my life, and I hope it is for you or your child's life as well. As Phoenix always supported me, it is now my time to come and support them. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge.
Porka Topka, followed by Megan Harris.
Hello, good evening. My name is Porka Topka. I'm a new resident of Sandy Springs, and I'm a proud member of the United States Marine Corps. I greet you today, the members of the City Council. I'm here in support of Phoenix Gymnastics. I'm also here to teach my daughters to stand up for what they believe in, and I'm here to show them that city government can actually work and is willing to take a chance on its residents. I'm also here to show them that city government actually takes the experiences of their citizens into account before making final decisions. My family and I, as I said, are new to Sandy Springs, and we felt very welcome in many ways. One of the best experiences that we've had is getting my daughter enrolled in Phoenix Gymnastics, located in Hammond Park, because that location, it feels very public, and most importantly, it feels accessible to all the kids and families who are interested in gymnastics. It also made us extremely proud to know that it was a minority-owned business. When I first went there, it was so amazing to see how multicultural, diverse, and uplifting the gym was. There were kids from all across Sandy Springs and so many different backgrounds and experiences, and they were so excited and focused on learning gymnastics. The location made all the difference in the world because everyone knows Hammond Park, and because it's associated with safety, sports, fun, competition, and most importantly, public engagement. Now, today I've heard how focused the city of Sandy Springs is in engaging and connecting with the citizens, and it's so great to see that. This city is so innovative and laser focused on improving the lives and experiences of all of its residents. Allowing Phoenix Gymnastics to stay in its facility is an outstanding way to not only publicly, positively engage the citizens, but also demonstrate to the children of the gym and who are future taxpaying residents that Sandy Springs that the city government cares about their experiences and they promote diversity and inclusion, and the city took a chance on them. I just want to say, please allow the Phoenix Gymnastics to stay in its current facility. It will have a long-lasting impact in on all its current and future residences. And we need your help today, City Council. We also ask that you do not terminate the contract with Phoenix Gymnastics. Thanks for your time.
Ms. Harris.
Who will be followed by Lindsay Powell. Ms. Powell's our last.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Megan Harris, 9165 Carroll Manor. Would like to start off today with the quote that Coach Gina was not able to finish, going towards our city core operations and values. She was talking in regards to our honest, efficient, and responsiveness are guiding principles integrated within the city core operations. I believe in that, and I think that we should all hold each other accountable as well on both ends of on all ends of the table. I made some important points to highlight throughout that I know about with this situation. One of the most pressing pieces has to do with the rodent and vermin control of the facility. That was a pre-existing situation that was already going on, specifically around squirrels. Now, I know I'm a homeowner, and a lot of folks who are residents have dealt with squirrels. That's not a quick fix kind of situation. When the springtime came around last year, that situation exploded into a bona fide infestation issue. The city was made aware of this, where we actually have a city official that had a chance to witness this past November, where at that point there was conversation of having the facility fumigated, but the ball was dropped, unfortunately, and that never happened. Throughout this duration of time, we still had children attending going to this facility, which is a harmful situation to be in, because as cute as squirrels are, they can be carriers of very serious disease and viruses as well. It is nothing for a child to be playing around thinking they're going to catch a squirrel and maybe a tick gets on them and they can have Lyme disease. It can happen just that fast. So there's some gravity to this situation, specifically around our pest control. Not only that is an OSHA concern, but on a Georgia health safety item, that is also a concern. I look forward to sharing those bulleted points in your email as well to accommodate the shortened time. But I just wanted to bring those points to your presence, to your attention. Thank you.
Ms. Powell.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Powell. Of course, my dad is Mr. Mike Powell. And before I begin, I just ask that we can please just reset. Please don't zone out on me. Please really, really listen, because of course you know where I live. But I've been employed at Phoenix Gymnastics, and one of my family's values is hard work. So I've been employed since I was a freshman. I've been employed at a few different places, and typically you see employees and coworkers disrespecting each other. You just see all of this bad stuff. Phoenix is the exact opposite. Phoenix is a place that I want to be. That is why North Springs has me employed there. I can learn firsthand how to become an entrepreneur, a dang good one at that, so that I can start my own practice someday and help children. I learn how to set and achieve goals in the real world, how to handle situations with grace, and grow from mistakes. I learn how to not treat these children as numbers, but rather as valuable human beings because they are. That's how Gina treats every single person that comes through her doors. And I get the privilege of looking up to her as a role model and to learning how to be more like her. And let me just ask you, who do you want teaching my generation? I want Gina teaching my generation. If I'm going to be sitting in your chairs someday, if my friends are going to be sitting in your chairs someday, I ask that you invest in this future. If you say that you really, really want to help our community, please help water these seeds. Please don't stomp on them. Don't pull them out. Please just be with us and just understand that Gina provides a special kind of love that you're not going to find at any other gym. Whoever has a possibility of replacing Phoenix Gymnastics, it's not going to be the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Does that bring us to the conclusion? All right, I want to thank everybody for your courteous, passionate presentations tonight. Thank you. This is democracy at work, and Ms. Powell, I don't think anybody will ever zone out on you, let alone this body. But thank you for your participation. Madam City Manager, how do you want to proceed? I think you've got a presentation that you would like to make.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Mayor, if my mic will work. The Assistant City Manager has pulled together some information to provide some additional context to Council with all of the actions that the city has taken throughout the contract term with Phoenix Gymnastics, and I will ask Kristen Byers-Smith to walk us through that now.
All right, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. All right. So on the next slide, I'm going to walk through the timeline with our contractual relationship with Phoenix Gymnastics. So subject to a 2019 request for proposals, the City Council awarded an operating agreement to Phoenix Gymnastics in August of 2019. As outlined in the RFP and shown on the fee schedule provided by Phoenix, which is on this slide, custodial work was to be handled by Phoenix. Payment to the city was $33,500 in year one of the contract, which included a 3-month concession to grow the business, and thereafter $90,000 annually. The city maintained responsibility for major capital improvements and utilities, and the utilities average about $4,000 per month for the city. Next slide. In March of 2022, in 2020, we were at the height of the pandemic. We declared a state of emergency and temporarily closed Hammond Gym and other city recreational facilities. In April, we formally excused all of our recreation contractors of their contractual obligations, including payment during the closure. In May, we notified all of our recreation contractors that they could reopen beginning June 1. So in June, classes reconvened. Phoenix requested modification to the contractual terms. And in October of that year, this body approved the First Amendment to the agreement as a result of that request. And on the next slide, you'll see the modification to the fee schedule here. So with the uncertainty of the pandemic, the First Amendment modified both fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022. So instead of $90,000, the contract was modified to say 25% of gross revenues, not to exceed $90,000. On the next slide, we're going to skip ahead to July to September of 2021. We did not receive our rental payment for those months. And in October, Phoenix requested additional modifications to the agreement, including a waiver of payments and adjustments to future payments. In January of 2022, this body approved the Second Amendment to the agreement as a result of that request. And on the next slide, you can see the fee schedule that was modified. So this modified fee schedule retroactively waived rental payments from July of 2021 to December of 2021. That totaled up to $45,000. We reduced January to June of 2022 from a maximum of $7,500 per month, which is the $90,000 annually, to $2,400 per month. So that's a total maximum value of $30,000. So that equates to about $75,000 in modifications to the contract for fiscal year 2022 alone from the original contracted amount. On the next slide, between August and September of 2022, we received payment, but the checks were returned for non-sufficient funds. Unfortunately, we did not receive communication from Phoenix that the payments would be late, that the checks weren't valid, nor did they reach out to make a plan for that payment. We did receive payment in October of 2022 of the $7,500 for that specific month, but at that point in time, we did not receive payment for August or September of 2022. So in November of 2022, we issued a default letter for the unpaid balance, which at the time totaled $22,500. That was for August, September, and November. Per the contract, we provided 10 days to cure, and Phoenix was unable to cure the default within the contractual period. At the 10-day mark, staff met with Phoenix, and they indicated that moving forward, they would not be able to meet their contractual monthly payment of $7,500 and requested that the rent be adjusted for a third time per month through calendar year 2023. So on the next slide, in December of 2022, the city issued a termination letter effective December 31st. That termination letter notified Phoenix that any future agreements were conditioned upon immediate payment of outstanding amounts. We received payment of $22,500 on December 28th of 2022. The outstanding balance of $7,500 for the December 2022 rent is still outstanding. As we worked through the termination, we wanted to make sure that families who had already registered for programming could still receive that programming from Phoenix. So we worked on a transition plan that would allow them to continue and finish out their session or seasons in Hammond Gymnastics. So beginning January of this year, we allowed rental programming for $50 per hour. Although we still have not received the $7,500 payment, nor do we have a signed rental agreement. So with that, the city absorbed the cost of cleaning the facility at $2,410 per month. On the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about the facility itself. As you all know, it was constructed in 1978, so it has challenges associated with the timeline of that. So staff are working to maintain that facility, but it comes with a set of challenges. So this is sort of an overview of some of the improvements that we've made. So in 2018, the city invested $571,000 in interior facility renovations. Between 2019 and 2020, we renovated the restrooms at $215,000. Since January of 2021, we have tracked more than 150 planned maintenance tickets through our facility team. We have 8 tickets that we are tracking with Phoenix during this time, including painting, water intrusion and leaks, wall-mounted heater keys, and pest management, as you've heard today, with the squirrels. So in 2022 alone, the city has invested more than $95,000 in facility enhancements. We've added 2 new HVAC packages. Pest control, we are working with Brita Pest Management on the squirrel issue. We've upgraded the security system, fire monitoring, protection, LED lighting, painting, and other items. So on the next slide, knowing that this was going on, we also reached out to other local providers to ensure that families would have a place to go. Both Peach Pit and Jumpstart have availability to take on additional students during the interim period if that's something that families are interested in, and I have included their information here as well. On the next slide, you will see a summary that staff pulled from public data on the cost comparison for Phoenix, Jumpstart, Peach Pit, and Roswell Recreation and Parks. You can see that all charge slightly different rates, have slightly different schedules. Some are 6 weeks, some are per month, but not significantly different in our opinion. On the last slide for next steps, staff intend to issue a new request for proposals to procure Hammond Gymnastics operation services. And in the meantime, we would intend to continue to allow month-to-month rental of the facility until a provider is selected through the RFP process. Renters must be in good standing with the city, and gym rentals that were previously handled through Phoenix are now renting space through the city. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any question.
Any questions? Mr. DiGiulio.
Kristen, I have a couple of questions. First of all, do we know how many children are being serviced by this facility, by Phoenix?
Our understanding from Phoenix is that it's somewhere around 300. So I don't have the exact number in front of me, but
The woman from Phoenix was here. Is that correct, the number, about 300? Oh, she left. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
she indicated 350.
350? And then second, you say that the utilities are $4,000 per month. Is that for the gym or is that for all of Hammond Park?
That's for the gym.
That's just for the gym? $4,000 a month? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Dr. Kelly.
It wasn't clear to me, so in fiscal year 2022, we received 30,000? Is that what I felt like I saw? I know it was adjusted in fiscal year 22. I'm just trying to get a sense of what that expected jump was from fiscal year 22 to 23.
I'm sorry.
So what
Councilwoman,
did we
can you
receive in fiscal year 22?
In terms of payments?
Yeah, what did we?
So for fiscal year 2022, we waived 6 months, and then we received $2,400 for a 6-month period.
Oh, okay. And then from there, then the expectation was to go immediately back into sort of the full 90,000 a year.
That's correct.
Okay, without any sort of phasing in or anything like that. I was just, okay, thanks.
Mr. Paulson, then Mr. Baumann.
Thank you, Mayor. So based on the current situation, the Phoenix can still rent the Hammond Park facility at an hourly rate to keep their classes going, at least in the interim.
That's correct.
And then we're going out with a new request for proposals from whoever submits to operate gymnastics in that facility going forward. What's the timeline on that procurement?
We are working on that document as we speak, and our hope is to get that out in early March. Correct.
Mr. Baumann.
Okay, so first of all, to those that are here, thank you for presenting. It is important to hear from everybody, and there's obviously a lot going on here, and so first of all, so thank you. I just want to be clear on the City Council's role in all of this so far. As a body, have we done, let me see, I assume we approved the first contract back in the 2019. It would have come before us
Yes, both
after the first RFP process.
Both, you approved the original agreement and then the first and second amendments to the contract.
We've approved that. Thank you. You anticipated my question. We've approved the first and second amendments.
That's correct.
Okay. That is all this body has done, is that right?
That's correct.
I mean, I know there's discussions.
There was a third amendment, correct? There were 3 amendments. There were two amendments. The original and 2 amendments.
Correct. So yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just make it clear.
All right. So is there anything pending before this body right now, can I ask?
No, sir, there is not.
Okay. So this body, I mean, this is again, the posture right now is this is a contract administration matter. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So it would seem that for this body, and again, sincerely appreciating, and I'm glad Tibby asked about the numbers, and quite frankly, I see in here the plan is to procure a Hammond Gymnastics Operations Services. Is that currently the plan? Or is the plan to come back to this body and say, okay, we're at this inflection point. What do you all want to do? And process-wise, I don't think tonight is the time to do that. I think we're already way out of order of our normal process from even responding. But that is a mayor's prerogative, and I think it was important that we've done that. I think it's very important. This presentation is very important. But I personally want to digest this, and hearing that I don't know whose decision it was. I don't remember it coming, that there is a plan to go out on an RFP. What I'm really going to want to know is the model broken, right? Is there a flaw? I mean, we're hearing obviously very impassioned, qualitative assessments. I haven't received a complaint. I don't know if anybody as to the services, and beautiful speeches tonight, which can't help but be moved. I just want to think about and have you all think about what the model is. I mean, if I hear that they're serving underserved kids, this is clearly a for-profit venture right now. I mean, I ran a farmer's market, okay? I get it. But if they're serving underserved kids, and Councilman DeGiulio has said always, we don't want to, they're providing a service for the city. There are pure for-profit groups out there, and I get it, and I think it's a fair comparison, but I do want some time to digest this, and just wanted to make clear what the city has done is we've adopted the original contract and 2 amendments. There is nothing pending before us right now. We had this dialogue tonight. I think we need to kind of hear more about this and, before we move on. And I am glad to hear that it sounds like a fairly reasonable proposal has been laid out on the table for the continuation, at least, to the extent services need to be rendered. And I know there's some uncertainty, but I am concerned about the condition of the property. It is our obligation to make sure it's in good shape. Okay, if we're going to, this represents the city. So, and I see all the money we've spent. Do we have an obsolete property? Is it even serviceable? And I don't think these complaints are particularly fair tonight in the sense that I think we're conflating different issues. They're legitimate issues, but we were never aware of that. We've heard some information. So I've spoken enough. I haven't spoken much tonight, but I want to think about this. And seeing is that the city has apparently made a decision through staff that there's going to be an RFP on gymnastics. It's going to have high scrutiny from me as to whether it's going in with a flawed model. It needs to be set up for success. And, it's a terrible circumstance to have started what's already a really low margin situation, and then 3-4 months later, and the city did, I think it's important to note, did bend over backwards. I mean, at least that's what was being presented to us, like this is what we've agreed to. So I thank you for your really good work here in responding, and I sincerely thank all of these folks for their comments.
Ms. Rochelle.
I just think it's important for everybody to know and for Gina to know that we really wanted her to be successful and that Mike Perry and the rest of us did everything that we could to help her. And even when you were here during the pandemic, I personally gave you a check made out to gymnastics to help you. And I think some of the things that were said tonight were very unfair. But I do appreciate the passion that you have. But I do think some of the things were unfair that you said. And I want to also talk about the building, too, is that if we have that many problems with the building that we do, I think we need to look at what we need to do with the building before we put out an RFP.
Yeah, so I will speak to that since you both mentioned it. So we do have money in our budget to conduct a full master plan of the Hammond site. So our intention with the RFP is to structure that so that it's not a full 5-year term, that we can terminate that when we need to, given the future of that facility being uncertain. We may decide if this body were to allocate capital dollars to do something different, to tear down the facility, anything like that in the future. We want to make sure we have the flexibility to make that determination through a master planning exercise and then decide after that what happens with the programming on the site.
All right, thank you, everybody. We'll move forward, get into regular order. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. DeGiulio.
I move approval of the meeting agenda for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023.
A motion by Mr. DeGiulio. Do I hear a second? Been moved by Mr. DeGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve the meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on approval of the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The meeting agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Rochelle.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for February 7th, 2022.
We have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The consent agenda is approved. Moving to public hearings, will the clerk please read the first item? Whoop, I jumped one, didn't I? No, I didn't.
Nope,
Go ahead.
Agenda item 2023 39. This is ABL 97-112, approval of alcoholic beverage license application for Aspire Hospitality LLC, doing business as Home 2 Suites, Atlanta Perimeter Center at 6110 Peachtree, Dunwoody Road, Sandy Springs, Georgia. Applicant is Nilesh Kumar Patel for consumption on the premises of wine and malt beverages, presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council. This is a new application for consumption on the premises of wine and malt beverage. Aspire Hospitality LLC, DBA Home 2 Suites, Atlanta Perimeter Center, 6110 Peachtree, Dunwoody Road, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30328. The applicant, Nilesh Kumar Patel, has met all requirements, and staff recommends approval. This is in Councilwoman Melissa Mueller's district.
All right, have we received any public comment cards? We have not. All right, we will close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-039, ABL number 97-112, approval of the alcoholic beverage license application for Aspire Hospitality LLC, doing business as Home 2 Suites, Atlanta Perimeter Center, 6110 Peachtree, Dunwoody Road, Sandy Springs, Georgia.
Motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-039, the alcoholic beverage license application for Aspire Hospitality. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-039, the alcoholic beverage license application for Aspire Hospitality. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-40. This is ABL 97-149, approval of alcoholic beverage license application for 215 Lounge LLC, doing business as La Doña Lounge at 215 Northwood Drive, that's Suite 8, Sandy Springs, Georgia 30342. Applicant is Christian Ramirez for consumption on the premises of wine, malt, and distilled spirits, also presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
This is a change of ownership for consumption on the premises of wine, malt beverage, and distilled spirits. 215 Lounge LLC, DBA Ladona Lounge, 215 Northwood Drive, Suite number 8, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30342. The applicant, Christian Ramirez, has met all requirements, and staff recommends approval. This is a change of ownership, and it is in Councilman Andy Bauman's district.
Madam Clerk, have we received any public comment cards? We will close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul, I
Mr.
think I've been
Brown.
summoned. I move adoption of agenda item 2023-040, alcoholic beverage license app for 215 Lounge LLC, DBA La Dona Lounge, 215 Northwood Drive.
Got a motion by Mr. Bauman. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Bauman, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2023-040, the alcoholic beverage license application for 215 Lounge at 215 Northwood Drive. Any discussion? Chief DeSimone, we had any issues in this area from a law enforcement perspective? This particular shopping center, anyway.
Yes, sir. We have. Actually, just maybe 1 or 2 months ago, there was a Drug Enforcement Administration raid on that strip mall shopping center there that we participated in. And that's always been a source of concern for us right there. Hopefully this new ownership will do better than the last, but time will tell.
Was this the place that was raided?
One of the places, yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Bauman.
So, yeah, I mean, thank you for starting the discussion. I guess, is there anything embedded in the process for a license as it relates to objective standards, maybe, Dan, for review of the permit? I mean, these permits come through a fairly checklist-oriented, right, and maybe different departments sign off, and then we get the lovely report. I get summoned for an application. I've been here for 9 years, and I can think of 2 or 3 situations where we hit the pause on licenses. I think for for what I would say are law enforcement and sort of community safety reasons. And I don't want to be, I want to be cautious on how we do it, but is there cause for concern, and is there anything that allows the process for some subjective review that would justify perhaps whether it be this one or another one in an area, particularly with sort of concerns about crime and public safety, that would allow us to, I think we're allowed to, but would justify a pause button, given that this is one of the few times that we might have a leverage point in a process to get better outcomes of public safety.
Currently, our ordinances are applicant-driven. In other words, the trouble that the chief has identified and his department has done a great job of identifying is not attributable to this applicant. He has passed all the requirements of our ordinance. Now, setting some standards for some geographic standards is not unprecedented. We have some in the ordinance as far as locale to proximity to a church, school. We've discussed with the chief and with the staff about coming to you with some discussions about grading a certain area. The police department is putting together a program to assess areas using the data that they accumulate. And I don't remember what the numbers are, Chief, about the number of calls in the strip shopping center, but they're numerous. And if what we've done in this instance is identified those problems, we've made the property owner, the landlord, if you will, aware of them. This applicant has been made aware of the previous problems in the mall, in the strip mall. But as our ordinances are written today, I don't believe we can hold that against the applicant.
And the policy would require some, the consideration should have some cause and effect, right? And you want to be very careful of unintended consequences. If it's so I hear what you're saying. So you're not suggesting, I think there's a background here, and from a consistency standpoint, we need to be really cautious about, an application, but I really think the idea of bringing some criteria, provided you can correlate activities with crime rates, I'd be very open to that.
It's recognized. It has been recognized by the courts. Our ordinance doesn't currently affect it, but I feel very comfortable that with the data the police department keeps, that we could identify areas that are not suitable for the sale of alcohol.
Right.
Based on the history and the current status. Certain things, and this is part of our proposal to the property owner, need to be done to the property. As you know, one of the fastest rising areas of liability, commercial liability, has to do with the safety of the people that are invited to a shopping area. All you go is watch TV at lunchtime, and you see that my brethren and sisters advertising about, have you been injured at some apartment complex?
Sure.
Have you been injured at our business that wasn't correctly secured? With the assessment I believe the police department could do of an area like this, as far as lighting, as far as...
Yeah, well, that's also code enforcement. That's what I was going to ask. Do we have any way to know if on this tax parcel, not this shop, but on this tax parcel, are there any existing, for example, code violations pending?
There have been numerous code violations, and they have been corrected, up to and including fire code violations. The place was closed for a few days until
the store or the property?
But all of them, especially this bar.
Mr. DiGiulio.
Rusty, you might remember this. When we first incorporated, there was a nightclub on Roswell Road, and I don't know if they changed ownership or what, but we refused to renew a liquor license on there because of...
Yeah, it wasn't when we first, you were on council.
Ram did the grill.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was on the council
so
as well.
most-
Was it that race?
It's
Anyway,
been probably 6-7 years ago.
No, it's
Yeah.
longer than that. It was in the building that came down, I think.
Yeah, it's, yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
about right.
But
Maybe-
but
maybe
we didn't renew their license because there had been so many calls for service of the police and so many problems there. So I assume we have that authority to
If
go
the
ahead.
applicant were the same person.
Mayor Paul?
No, for the same establishment.
No, in that case, the applicant had been there during all the calls.
No, it was actually a change of
It was a change
ownership
of ownership.
is when we did it.
And it was,
change of
it was,
ownership.
I think, we've looked at this, and we tried to compare it to this situation. It was not an arm's length transaction.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And this has been thoroughly researched in that this person who is the applicant that's before you tonight is unrelated to the person who was running the place before.
All right. Mr. Paulson?
I recall this as well. There was some funny business going on between the old applicant and the new applicant, and during the questioning and the investigation of the new applicant, this came to light, and as a result of that, that was denied. But that was applicant-driven, and so I think my worry here is I don't want to blame this applicant for past sins of a property that he was not a party to. And if he's not a party to this, then it's really his business to run without having to be tainted by the past history.
Mr. Paulson, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with you, but at a certain level, when we have an area where we have high rates of crime, we've had some violent crime, we've had drug dealing in there, I think that we need the opportunity to say this is not an area where we want to see alcohol sold. Yeah, I think that's what we may not be able to do that tonight.
Not tonight, yeah.
But I do want to see that we have, particularly working with the police department, if we have issues where we have high crime in an area, that we have the ability to make a decision that alcohol should not be sold in this area because of the impact on the community, whether it's crime or some other nefarious activity. I don't think so.
I would recommend that you not affect this applicant because of what had gone on at this establishment prior to his involvement in it. It does not address his due process right.
Have we ever rescinded an alcohol license later, or if there's issues?
Not that I know of.
Is there a process for that?
There's not, but in changing this policy to consider the crime level in the area where the applicant intends to put the alcohol sales, I would ask you to consider and like to propose to you that you consider something similar that the ordinances allow with the business license. And we have revoked, in my tenure, 3 business licenses, and that applicant has the right to appeal that decision to you. I would like to see an amendment in the alcohol ordinance that allows the police chief, upon good cause shown, to suspend a license with the right of appeal back to the council.
Mr. Lee, it's unfair of me to throw this out there in the middle and expect reaction, but it is something that troubles me, and I knew the address here was an area that the police department would work with the federal law enforcement to, and I think we've been pretty generous on issuing alcohol license in the city. In fact, yeah, in most cases it is. I mean, the finance department does its job well, does the background investigations in conjunction with others, and bring us what they consider to be a legitimate application. I don't think we can postpone or table this one, but we can use it as an opportunity to look at our policies to make sure that going forward, if we have an area where there is a consistent problem of crime, where we get an inordinate number of police calls to an area, that this body ought to have the ability to manage and regulate that in conjunction with law enforcement to make sure that we do everything we can to maintain public safety. Mr. DiGiulio.
Tony, when you do the background checks on issuing liquor licenses, I assume you have some sort of a checklist you go down. Does it include consultation with the police to find out if it has been a problem addressed so that you could take that into consideration, or is your rating based solely on finances?
The process does include the police. The process does include the police's feedback, the police department's feedback. It does.
And you do a full background check on
yes.
the applicant to make sure there are no outstanding warrants, convictions, or anything else that would disqualify them for getting an approved application, correct?
Yes, sir. We go through GCIC, and basically the criteria says they meet qualifications or they do not. They have specific guidelines to help us determine whether or not they qualify or not to move forward.
Yes, I thought so.
Yes, it would be any type of DUI, arrest, trying to think of all the things on the list. Right, convictions.
Conviction-based.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. There are certain convictions which disqualify you to hold an alcoholic beverage license in the state of Georgia. These are state requirements. Well,
Yes.
it's some felonies, but there may be some high crimes and misdemeanors involved too. So,
A
but generally
DUI
felony.
counts. A DUI counts.
Yeah.
And again, the problem with this is that our ordinance does not now allow for you to scrutinize the place where it's going to this extent. And it's a warranted change, and up to and including the allowance for the police chief to immediately suspend it with a right of appeal back to you. This was caught, and just to give you some comfort about the process, it was handled like all of them are. Police cleared the applicant. Our on-the-ball city manager knows about where the calls come from, and she spotted that we've had 50-something calls, Chief,
I think so.
in a year in the strip mall, and that started this extraordinary review.
And still came forward with a recommendation. Do we have a lot of alcohol licenses in the pipeline right now?
Probably less than 5.
Less than 5?
Yes.
So, okay. Well, I mean, I would certainly support a policy review. I'm driving at whether there's a cause for, and this is a rare situation, but whether there's a cause for a moratorium at some point so that we can get the policies in place, because it's going to, but we don't have a lot of these, and I don't want to disrupt, business is hard enough right now. I don't really want to unnecessarily disrupt people.
No, but if we have an area that has an inordinate number of calls, I think it's important for us to take a look at it and make some kind of policy decision about whether alcohol sales should be permitted within the jurisdiction that this body has. I just wanted to raise that and get that and make sure that council was aware that this was a location that had some issues.
Come on, baby. I think this is worth talking about, but this is a policy decision that we have to spend some time thinking about, the consequences of this. So with regard to this application, I have no objection to this application, but I would like to understand what we could do in the future if we have that, and have staff come back to us with some ideas about how to deal with this if, in fact, we have a situation like this going forward.
Well, knowing the history of this area, I wanted to raise that to council's and maybe use this as an opportunity going forward.
Yes, sir. Because of this application, we have done some research, and I think one of the big things, and Mr. Lee talked about this, is allowing the police chief to, under emergency circumstances, suspending a liquor license for a business. And just today, we found out that the police chief in New Orleans, Louisiana, has that ability. So I think it would be a good idea to give the police chief that authority. Say you have a shooting one night at an establishment, and you have another shooting the next night, you're going to have to move fast. I mean, and the police chief, we move fast.
Yeah, so with that, we'll informally ask the city manager and the city attorney to get together and with staff and look at what options we may have available to bring to us at a later time. Meanwhile, we have a question on the floor which is the approval of this particular license. We have a motion by Mr. Baumann, a second by Mr. Giulio. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on the alcoholic beverage license. Let me get back to the right page. 2023-040 for the alcoholic beverage license application at 215 Lounge, 215 Northwood Drive. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-41. This is TA 22-0007. Consideration of an amendment to Development Code Division 10.1. That's general provisions of Article 10, and that's streets and improvements to include a complete streets policy. This is presented by Sustainability Manager Catherine Mercier-Baguette.
Ms. Mercier-Baguette.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be here. The purpose of this text amendment is to adopt a policy that is really a best practice for the design of right-of-way corridors that ensures the safety of all users, not only motorists, but also pedestrians, cyclists, transit riders, people with some kind of limitation, and also our emergency responders. It is quite a common practice to have a complete streets policy. It is recommended in our transportation master plan and also in our next TENCOM plan. Of course, it counts towards the Regional Commission's Green Communities certification. It would also strengthen our walk-friendly application, and it could improve our competitiveness with transportation grants, especially at the federal level. When we drafted this policy, we looked at what's going on in our region, but also across the nation to collect best practices. In reality, we're not really changing anything. We are already codified to have complete streets. So in this example here, you can see that there is a sidewalk and also a bike path with shade. So the details of the amendment, I will go very quickly over these. So it would apply to new construction, not repaving, not resurfacing, not anything minor. The idea is also to keep some kind of flexibility in the application of this policy. So we want to make sure that there is a balance between, yes, transportation, but also economic development, safety. So there are several goals that we would be looking at. We definitely should consider the vulnerable road users, which is the main intent. We intend to use the best design and standards, but also really to base the decisions on the development code. And finally, we needed to establish a responsible party, but our current practice is really to have everybody working together, and that's what we included in here. Staff recommends approval, and Planning Commission recommended approval as well.
All right, Ms. Mercier-Baguette, let me apologize. I was not looking at my watch timing you, but occasionally I get messages on this thing, and occasionally the city manager will send me a text message telling me that I've really screwed something up, and my wrist vibrated, so I figured it was probably her, but it wasn't. So I apologize if you thought I was trying to rush you up. All right, you've heard the report of the sustainability manager. Yes, I'm about to ask for that. Have we received any public comment cards? None. We'll close the public hearing. What's the desire of council? Ms. Rochelle.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-041, consideration of amendment to Development Code Division 10.1, general provisions of Article 10, streets and improvements to include a complete streets policy.
We have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-041, approving an amendment to Development Code Division 10.1, general provisions of Article 10, street improvements to include a complete street policy. Any discussion? Mr. Paulson.
Thank you. Would you go back a slide? Maybe it's 2 slides. Let's try going back one. Okay.
Sorry, we have too many people with control of the slides.
Okay. One at a time. Let's go forward. Or go back. Back. Hang on. Complete street solutions based on adopted standards. These are laws and requirements and practices within the DOT that are in place already?
It actually refers, if you're talking about E, it refers to our section in the development code and in the technical manual, and that's where you find these sections.
Okay, then let's go back, next slide after this one. And the reason I'm interested is where roadway projects balance the transportation, operational, and safety needs of all users, and then should consider unique needs of vulnerable road users. There are guidelines in the federal highway guidance as well as probably federal statutes regarding vulnerable road users. We're following those, right?
Yes, absolutely. This
Okay.
is kind of an additional layer.
So they're in addition, over and above what those policies are?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it says that we actually need to have some dimensional standards and things of that nature that, to my understanding, are not in the federal regulations. And we're also talking about local streets that need to have a bit more finesse design than what you would find in the federal highway safety guidelines.
Well, I won't object to this right now, but I'd be interested in the specific details of this, just to understand what we're talking about here as we go forward, okay?
Ms. Rochelle?
Back to the picture, I'm trying to understand, when it says no parking, does that mean that we can't have any parallel parking on our streets, or?
We have different types of roads in the development code, and that is just one of them, which happens to be where we would recommend a road that does not have parking. We also have another section that has parallel parking.
So this is not saying that we're not allowed to have any parallel parking?
Not at all.
in-
It's just
okay.
an example, one of probably 7 or 8 different sections that we have.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right. Hearing none, we'll call the question. Questions on agenda item 2023-041, an amendment to the Development Code 10.1, general provisions of Article 10, streets improvements to include complete streets policy. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-042. This is consideration to adopt the 2023 city priorities presented by City Manager Eden Freeman.
Ms. Freeman?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. At last week's council retreat, we had a lengthy discussion about council's priorities. Staff presented our accomplishments from calendar year 2022, as well as our recommended initiatives for 2023. During the conversation that day, there was a discussion specifically related to economic development, which you see on the item before you as our third item. The conversation reflected a desire perhaps of council to include more than just a targeted focus on the north end. I would remind council that North End was added last year in 2022. We have added some suggested language if council would like to consider that. Under alternatives, we could change that item to create and support targeted economic development opportunities with a focus on redevelopment without calling out a specific area of the city. Obviously, we can make any changes or amendments to the priorities that council may desire, but we would like to continue our discussion and hopefully council adopt the resolution this evening because, believe it or not, the FY24 budget process will be kicking off very soon, and these priorities form the foundation of our guidance to the departments as they begin to prepare their budget request for next year. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
You've heard the report of the city manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Rochelle?
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-042, the adoption of the city priorities with the alternative saying of create and support targeted economic development opportunities with a focus on redevelopment.
Okay. Have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second? Second. Then moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve agenda item 2023-042, adopting the city's priorities with the focus on, what was the verb you used?
The alternative.
Alternative for redevelopment? Okay. I think everybody understands the position we're in. Okay. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
Eden, would we be able to set goals for each one of these so that we would then, when we get to the retreat, next year be able to measure our performance?
That is exactly what staff will be coming back with, recommended goals. As you all recall, at the end of the slides on the priorities, we had a screenshot that was a little difficult to see that had a spreadsheet where we would be tracking our progress with our goals and our initiatives. But to the point that council, and we heard loud and clear, on what gets measured is what gets accomplished. We are working to finalize what these will be, and we'll be reporting on those for you at our next retreat. You'll also hear more about that during the budget process, because my goal for us is to get our very first Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Award, and we have to have all of those measures in place in order to achieve that.
Okay, thank you, because sometimes when you're presented numbers, you really don't know if that's good or bad.
Correct.
So if you have, the measurement, that's one thing, and then if we have the trend over time, that's even better.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. DiGiulio.
Eden, speaking for 3 septuagenarians on this council, is there a possibility you can get us that chart with something that we can actually read?
Absolutely.
Because, just can't read it.
It's not septuagenarians. I have a similar problem as well.
Yeah, but he still can't read. He's still a
I
septuagenarian.
keep binoculars on my desk to help me with this process.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bauman.
Say to our citizens on the north end, as I was one of the members of council that brought up this language, that this is not about bringing down the north end, but it's more of a reflection that we have a citywide, I don't think anything changes, but we have we have a lot of citywide needs, and that this should, I hope, not be interpreted in any way as a negative as it relates to on the north end. And I can think of a lot of things. We committed to $1.5 million or so for for Morgan Falls Park. We're doing the beautiful new public safety complex. We've done some study plans. None of that should change. This north end discussion preceded this language. It will succeed this language. But we've brought up the fact, we're taking action at the city center. We're taking action at the crossroads. I've mentioned Powers Ferry Landing. So I just hope to both citizens and colleagues that this is not seen in any way as a detriment or negative on the importance of the work that's ongoing on the north part of Sandy Springs.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-042, adopting the 2023 city priorities. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
All right, the item is approved. Clerk, please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-043, consider to approve the submission of an application to the FY 2022 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. This is presented this evening by Scott McCullers, who is Section Chief of Administration with the Fire Department.
Mr. McCullers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Fire Department is requesting approval of this year's submittal of an application for the Assistance Firefighters Grant Program through FEMA and the United States Fire Administration. These funds will be utilized for personal protective equipment, additional equipment for our firefighters. Currently, we provide all of our firefighters with 2 sets of turnout gear. The only item that we're missing are helmets. So we want to duplicate those helmets. Also, the other item that would be included in this, if awarded, is a bailout system, which will allow firefighters, if trapped inside of a fire, they can use a hook and rope system to lower themselves down through a window. Currently, we do not provide that to our personnel. The financial impact, the grant is being requested for $124,100. The 10% local matching funds would be $12,410. Currently, we plan to request those funds in fiscal year 24. And I'm open for any questions.
All right, you've heard the report of the Section Chief. What's the desire of council? Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-43, approve the submission of an application to the fiscal year 2022 assistance. Is that right, fiscal year 2022?
Yes, sir, that's the federal fiscal year.
Okay, Assistant to Firefighters Grant Program.
Motion by Mr. Paulson. Do I hear a second? Second. Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-043, approving the submission of an application to the FY22 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-043, approving the submission of an application for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-44, consideration to approve the submission of a solid waste infrastructure for recycling grant application for improvements at the Sandy Springs Recycling Center. This is presented by Sustainability Manager Catherine Mercier-Baggett.
Ms. Mercier-Baggett.
You may remember that last week I talked about the Swiffer, and now you get the details of it. It is a grant that is under the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and it's administered by the EPA. It has three goals: increase recycling, reduce contamination in the recycling, and promote a circular economy. There are about 25 grants that should be awarded with a value of $500,000 to $4 million each. There is no match required, but as you will see later, I propose to do a little match. We are still developing the budget. We are racing against the clock, but we are thinking that it will be around $1.25 million. There are two different aspects of our proposal. The first one is to do some very much needed upgrades to the recycling center. As you can see on the photographs, although they're grainy, the site has not really changed since the closure of the landfill. It was the landfill office, and it's still in pretty much the same configuration. And then the second part of the proposal is to pilot a mobile recycling collection unit. So just a little background on the recycling center. It opened in the mid-'80s in a different location in a shopping center parking lot, from what I understand. It really offers complementary services to what the private waste haulers are providing. They accept dozens of types of materials, including glass, which is becoming quite rare. And they also collect materials that are beyond the traditional recyclable materials. In 2020, there was a master plan that was done. It really was just a quick study to see how could the operations in the site could be improved, and it indicated that there would be about $1.5 million of improvement needed. And as you can recall from that $1.25 million, we could achieve a really good bit of that. The city has been typically allocating $50,000 annually for capital improvements. I think that has been done 2 or 3 times in a row already. And this is the match that I propose. So we would commit those $50,000 for the duration of the grant, which is 3 years. The proposed upgrades to the site, first and foremost, are resurfacing the whole site and also improving the stormwater management because it is very outdated. The layout that you see here is just an idea. It's not necessarily what's going to happen, but the site is constrained, so we really have to work with what we have. We would install new fencing, new signage, new landscaping. There would be new containers and a structure that would help also improve the containment of the materials. And we would also buy some equipment like a compact loader, which is a Bobcat, and also an additional forklift. The second aspect of the project is a mobile recycling unit that would be driving around town and doing on-site collection in areas that are underserved. We would focus on multifamily complexes because that's where we have our most vulnerable populations and also where there is less access to recycling. Of the 90-some apartment complexes in Sandy Springs, only 18 advertise recycling as a service they offer. So for that, we would need a heavy-duty truck and 2 trailers like the ones that you're seeing on the picture. We would also hire 2 part-time employees to conduct education and also to drive around the truck and the trailer. And once the grant period would be over, it could be something that is covered by at-cost fees charged to the complexes, the apartment complexes that would sign on. So staff recommends approval of the application of the grant.
Okay. You've heard the report of the Sustainability Manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Kelly, or Dr. Kelly?
I move approval of agenda item 2023-044, approval of the submission of a solid waste infrastructure for recycling grant application for improvements at the Sandy Springs Recycling Center.
We have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve agenda item 2023-044, the submission of a solid waste infrastructure recycling grant application for the Sandy Springs Recycling Center. Any discussion?
I have a question.
All right, Ms. Mueller.
This is just in general related to recycling. Did you say that of the 88 or 90 apartment complexes, multifamily, only 19 do recycling?
Well, they advertise that they do recycling. We don't have actual data, but that's something that they proudly put out on their marketing materials.
And is that something that we could, with a new complex, and this is just a question, coming in, or a significant redevelopment of an existing one, that we would require that, or are we out of bounds to that?
Well, you may recall that we passed a text amendment recently that requires the haulers to offer it, but we are not requiring the customers to actually use those services. There's definitely work that could be done with new apartment complexes. I believe one of the greatest challenges is always, where do we put it? It takes up some space. There needs to be truck access. And that's also one of the limitations with the older apartment complexes, where there's just no room for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have to relay to everybody, I was taking back my Christmas trees second week of January, and I back in my truck, and I pull in, and there's Catherine with 2 or 3 others, and they're all intently studying this recycling center, putting together the list of things. So thank you very much for being out there on that little bit of a chilly afternoon going through this. That said, you said something here that I need to talk to you about. You said that we are going to hire new people so that we can run this mobile recycling center. Tell me again who we is.
Yes, I apologize. I tend to team up with Keep North Fulton Beautiful, but they would be Keep North Fulton Beautiful employees, yes.
Mr. DiGiulio.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on here. If I remember correctly, Keep North Fulton Beautiful is a joint project between Sandy Springs and Johns Creek. We're putting money into this thing on an annual basis. Is Johns Creek also putting in a like amount of money into this on an annual basis?
I don't know exactly what Johns Creek contributes, but the recycling center is in Sandy Springs, and it is first and foremost for the Sandy Springs community.
But even if you look at the logo on it, it says for Sandy Springs and Johns Creek. And so, I mean, if it's our facility, it's one thing, but if it's a joint facility, they should be doing it. Also, one of the things that we have strictly avoided in the past is taking one-time money and putting it into recurring expenses. And by having one of these trailers and going ahead and buying a truck and hiring some drivers and stuff like this, those are ongoing expenses where we won't have that grant money to last more than a year or two. Why? I mean, I think, no question, our recycling center needs to be upgraded. There's no question about that. As far as these mobile trailers, which is going to be an ongoing expense, I'm just not sure of that.
Yeah, so the idea is to charge the apartment complexes that will be receiving that service after the duration of the grant. So Keep North Fulton Beautiful being a nonprofit, it wouldn't be very high cost. It would be only to cover the operations and the maintenance of the equipment.
But I'd also like to know about their contributions to this, since it also serves their citizens as well as our own. Because if I remember correctly, when you go there, you have to show identification of what you're dropping off. And then I think once a year or every other year, we do a paint and hazardous materials and stuff like that. And I think if it's going to service both communities should be supporting it.
And Councilman, I will say for the recycling center operations, they have, there are certain items that they only accept from Sandy Springs residents. They don't have that same relationship for Johns Creek residents. So if you are coming in from Johns Creek, you would have to pay for certain things to drop off that Sandy Springs residents do not. So.
Well, I don't think they check. I can tell you that they haven't checked me, and my wife goes through regular house cleanings to get rid of all my stuff. And it ends up there. They've never checked. In fact, the last time I went, there were 2 cars from Cobb County dropping off. So if they're supposed to be checking residents, we need to make sure they're checking residents, because I haven't seen an indication of it.
That is only for certain items. So
Okay.
that's like if you're dropping off paint or there's a list of
So hazardous items, they have to check.
Correct. If you want to bring your refrigerator, they're going to ask you
Yeah.
for that.
You're going to do a little secret shop or test of that?
can
I'm
if
a
you
big,
have some
I'm,
old
I'm a
paint.
supporter of doing this, but I mean, I wouldn't dismiss these. I go there too, and and I bring regular. I mean, it's just people, volunteers. If I happen to see, what's her name out there? Kathy. It's great. I end up there for 30 minutes, but if this is the rule we've got, maybe let's test what we expect and secret shop it at some point.
Yeah, I've never had anybody check anything. Of course, I'm just carrying up old wine bottles, mostly. And I figured out how to recycle those. My daughter gave me a candle making where you can cut wine bottles, and I ordered my glass cutter yesterday, so I'll be making fewer trips. I'm recycling, Catherine.
That's actually reuse.
Reusing. I'm reusing. I knew the second I said it, I was in trouble. All right, anybody else? I do take concerns about the one-time use or the ongoing obligations, so we need to make sure we're looking at that and that there is a viable economic pathway toward achieving what you're talking. I assume that this addition gives us a leg up on the competition. This is a highly competitive process.
Yes.
The odds are against us, but if we do win, we need to be sure that we've taken all that in consideration. And in this process, we look at making sure that the economic model of sustainability from the maintenance of it is there, as well as the sustainability of the recycling. So, all right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-044, approving the submission of a solid waste infrastructure recycling grant for improvements to the Sandy Springs Recycling Center. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-045, consideration to accept an offer from Georgia Power Company to purchase an easement on city property located at 6189 Roswell Road. That's in land lot 89, the 17th District, City of Sandy Springs, tax ID 1700890007-0308. This is presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin, I've been wondering where you were.
Mayor and council, they couldn't keep me. Well, I'm last tonight, so they couldn't keep me away, though. Yeah, so we can finish the meeting right after
thank you.
this. Thank you, sir. So, Mayor and council, I bring before you tonight a little different easement agreement. In this case, Georgia Power Company, as a part of a transmission relocation agreement we entered into with them a little over a year ago, requires easement from us on our properties to relocate transmission towers here adjacent to City Hall. The first of those easement agreements tonight in front of you is for make sure it's 6189 Roswell Road, and that's the site of the former temporary fire station that was erected, and before that, many of you recollect, was an Enterprise rental company location there. So on that site, Georgia Power intends to, as a part of that relocation agreement, install a new power transmission pole. immediately across from City Hall here on Mount Vernon Highway, within the right-of-way, another Georgia Power transmission pole will be installed to properly align the transmission lines between the substation here and that new transmission pole at the former fire station site. With those adjustments, there will also be an alignment change as Georgia Power removes a transmission pole that currently is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Roswell Road and Mount Vernon Highway, changing the alignment to the next of the lines as they travel to the next tower north of Johnson Ferry Road. So I used my hands a little bit, but I hope I've described clearly enough to you that there's a line coming out of the substation here that needs to land on a new pole next to the Chase Bank, land on a new pole at the former fire station location, and then travel across the site of the future Veterans Park. No poles in the Veterans Park site, to a pole on the other side of the roadway just north of Johnson Ferry Road. So with that, two agreements in front of us tonight for easements. The first at the former fire station site for the location of a pole and foundation, requiring some 14,200.56 square feet of easement to install that tower, as well as accommodate the line adjustments that go along with the location of the new tower. Georgia Power makes an offer to the city of some $137,214 for the use of that easement and the location of the tower there. Staff, to include legal staff, has reviewed the proposed compensation for the use of that easement, and we believe this to be a fair and reasonable compensation to the city for the use of that easement for that tower. So first in front of you is the recommendation for an easement agreement in the amount of $137,214 for the easement on the former fire station site across the street. That location being, again, 6189 Roswell Road.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council? Mr. DiGiulio. We have a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Do I hear a second? Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-045, accepting an offer from Georgia Power, purchasing an easement on city property at 6189 Roswell Road. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
This in no way restricts our ability to enter that property, because the driveway onto that property is in the northwest corner. So when they put this pole in there, can we still fit a driveway so that we gain access to this property without having the pole be in our way?
It allows them the right to have their transmission tower, which, if you've noticed, the foundation for the transmission tower has already been set. We still have access to the remainder of the parcel. We still have the ability to use the land underlying the wires. You can't put, for instance, a permanent facility underneath those wires. That's one of the reasons why the adjusting tower across the street here at Chase Bank needed to be installed, so that you don't have transmission lines overlying an occupied facility.
Well, the reason I was asking was at one point we talked about that being parking for people that want to visit the Veterans Park, and I want to make sure that people can still have access to that.
Roadways, sidewalk, landscaping, all of those kinds of things appropriate. Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? That's all right. Happens it's not going to get better as you get older. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-045, accepting an offer from Georgia Power to purchase an easement on city property located at 6189 Roswell Road. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-046, request for mayor and city council consideration to accept an offer from Georgia Power Company to purchase an easement on city properties located at 6201, 6215, 6219 Roswell Road in land lot 89 of the 17th District, City of Sandy Springs, presented by Marty Martin, Public Works Director.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and council, these three addresses now reflect the assemblage of properties that reflect our Triangle Park site across the street. 6201, 6215, and 6219 Roswell Road. In this case, the area required by Georgia Power to accommodate the new alignment of the transmission wires, no poles now, they'll remove the existing pole at the northeast corner of Mount Vernon Highway and Roswell Road. Totals, see, I think I've got the number. There, here we go. 8,712 square feet located along that frontage. Let's see, I believe I've got the number right. Total amount of the offer from Georgia Power for that frontage, $283,140, which staff has reviewed and believes that to be a fair and reasonable compensation offer for the use of that easement on those properties.
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council? Mr. DiGiulio.
Item 2023-046, accept an offer from Georgia Power to purchase an easement on city property located at 6219 Roswell Road.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Do I hear a second? Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-046, an offer from Georgia Power to purchase easement for city properties located at 3 addresses along Roswell Road. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-046, accepting an offer from Georgia Power to purchase easement on city properties located at 3 addresses on Roswell Road. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving to reports, a couple of things. One of the things that I really want to, I think everybody knows, we had a very tragic, terrible, ugly set of instances that happened in Sandy Springs and Dunwoody over the weekend, where a group of sick-minded bigots passed out material into otherwise peaceful and quiet neighborhoods. I think we've all been disgusted by what we saw, what happened. I don't want to give them any more. I know that what they're looking for is attention, and they've gotten a lot of it. But I think, when we're in these situations, you've got a dilemma. One, you could sit back and then in silence, you don't give them the attention they want, but these kinds of activities demand that we stand up and say something. So I know I speak for this body and for the community at large when we find this sort of behavior despicable. As I said in one of the statements I made, Sandy Springs is a very tolerant community, but this kind of behavior is intolerant. It underscores the need for a piece of legislation at the Georgia General Assembly, HB 30, by Representative John Carson, that is before the House Judiciary Committee, that defines anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, in the state of Georgia, there is no definition for anti-Semitism in our statutes. And, we can argue, and right now, the tragedy is we're in a committee full of lawyers, and so, they're trying to, I think the committee would like to wants to pass something. The question is the definition and how they fit it, whether they refer to it, they put it in the body. So that's something that the committee's got to work out, but I would sure hope that this community would let their legislators know how important this particular bill is. And tomorrow night starts the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. And I can't think of a better way for this community to stand up and say what our values and our beliefs are than to go out and support the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival as a counter to the bigotry and the disgusting activity that we saw over the weekend. I'm going to be proud to be here tomorrow night with Mayor Dickens from Atlanta. It's a second trip to Sandy Springs in 3 weeks. Wow. He hasn't asked for a parking spot yet, has he? I'll give him. I'll give him Mr. Release if he needs a place to park. But anyway, I just thought that was very important for us to say. Secondly, things going on at the legislature. There's, As you know, I work with the Legislative Policy Council for GMA. We spend a lot of time up here talking about, can we regulate that? Can we regulate this? Can we do new streets? We're anticipating coming from forward, maybe even this week, a very broad preemptive bill. When I say preemptive, that would prevent us from taking any action on a lot of the stuff that we do. From land use, we don't know what it's going to be, but we know that it's going to be kind of a witch's brew of build to rent, making sure that they want us to have denser communities, and exactly what the bill is going to do or say, we don't know yet, but it's going to have a very broad impact on our ability to shape the future of our community. In the way that if this legislation that we anticipate coming forward, when we ask the question, can we, unfortunately the answer going forward may be no. This is a serious piece of legislation. I think based on what I know about it, it's going to go well beyond, I think, what the constitutional boundaries will allow. I've worked with GMA on a number. This is an effort to create additional housing, and we all know we need housing. I spent the last 3 years on a bunch of different committees working to try and figure out how we can improve housing production. But in a city like Sandy Springs, we don't have land to do this. Ostensibly, it's about creating housing around these new large economic development projects that are coming into the state, because the people who are coming are asking very legitimate questions. If I move to Covington, Georgia, or if I move to Bryan County, Georgia, where are my people going to live? Very important question. And the governor's put some money in for a rural housing initiative. But there's a coalition that's coming to areas like ours because they don't like the fact that we ask the question, can we regulate these things? And I think there's going to be this legislation that this community, I mean, as Tibby knows better than anybody, this community was founded, this city was founded on the goal of making sure we were able to shape the future of our community through land use. And if the legislature takes that away from us, or at least attempts to take it away from us, it's going to be serious, and we're going to need to make sure we mobilize our citizens as other citizens in every city, and this affects counties as well. The Municipal Association and the county commissioners are working together on this. This is going to hit at the very basic reason why local governments exist. So we'll have to see what the details are, and that will hopefully, may be coming later this week. We've worked with GMA to develop an alternative that focuses less on hammering us and giving us incentives, things like creating housing opportunity zones, like allowing in the state competition for CDBG funds, giving priority to housing, or giving priority to applications that have housing components, allowing us to be able to use, right now you can't use tax incentives for single-family owner-occupied housing. So there's a whole laundry list that I've worked with GMA, as have other mayors around the state, to try and come up with this list of things that we're presenting to the legislature, which are an alternative to be able to get this done. But we'll see. I'll keep you in the loop about what's going on there. And then finally, one point of personal privilege. We had a new member of our family this week. My youngest son, Andrew, and it's our sixth grandson, Bo Jameson Paul. Andrew wanted to name it for Bo Jackson. He's an Auburn guy. But Mama refused to go along with that, so he got it as close as he could. It's Bo, B-E-A-U, not B-O. So anyway, we're excited about that, and thank you for indulging me there. Anybody else? Dr. Kelly.
I just had a little while to think, and I just want to submit this on the public forum at the risk of sounding irrational, but I was indeed moved by the public comments made a little earlier tonight with respect to Phoenix Gymnastics. I recognize that much of the relationship between the city and the vendor predated my being on city council. And I also know that the city of Sandy Springs prides itself on being very businesslike and efficient as an organization. I'll just say that I'm beginning to find that sentiment to to be a little reductive, or perhaps even an oversimplification in some applications. So with respect to recreation services, I guess to the point that maybe Councilman Bauman made, I would like to take some time in the future to really think about our model and the way we approach the delivery of recreation and services similar to that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, staff reports.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
All right. We need an executive session for litigation in real estate.
Wait.
We don't? Well,
All right. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. DiGiulio.
I move adjournment.
Mr. DiGiulio moves adjournment. And seconded by Mr. Paulson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, no. We are adjourned. All right.